The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Tom Willander is 19 years old, going on 32, aka going on becoming a top 4 D-man for your Vancouver Canucks, unless you like Tyler Myers a lot. And man, oh man, Jake DeBrusk almost died because he blocked a shot with his nuts. Damn, bro. Me and you, we're not real men, bro. For real.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome to a show produced by two boys, Trevor Beggs and Kyle Bowen. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Canucks. I am Trevor Beggs, co-host of the show and also a Canucks writer with Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we get into today's episode, we got to thank you. I'm talking to you for tuning into Locked On Canucks, because guess what? It is your Canucks every damn day. We're part of that Locked On Podcast Network, doing the most for sports fans across the world. And for our show, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go subscribe, like, follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And, you know, we got to add a couple loonies to the wild, okay, on Locked On Canucks by shouting out our sponsors. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Tom Willander got started on his journey towards entering the Vancouver Canucks lineup last season. But will he play for the Vancouver Canucks next season? Let's give our take on that next and do a little mini review of Tom Willander's season in 2023-24. We're also going to talk about a report recently that suggests that Jake DeBrusk was the Canucks' number one target all along. Jake who? Not Jake Guentzel, Jake DeBrusk. We'll break that down and talk about the validity of that. I'll also compare Jake DeBrusk to another key free agent who I said was way better than Jake DeBrusk when I did a little short on YouTube following the trade. All that and more coming up. But before we get to that, let me introduce my co-host. Some people call him Flex Bowen. I call him Flex Bowen. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I'm living life. I got 10 hours of sleep last night. Feel good, feel great. I went to sleep watching a documentary/movie on the most famous bank robber in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know if people have seen that on Netflix. So, in other words, I'm ready, man. I'm ready. I'm motivated, man. This guy inspired me to do great things, to do big things. Okay, robbing banks is not a great thing, but the way he was doing it was, again, cerebral, okay? He was doing his thing. He was a master at his craft. Don't blame me, okay? Don't hate the player, hate the game. Anyways, Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs at the Don't Doze Art Lab, giving you that West Coast bias. One love to the people at the Locked On Podcast Network for giving us the culture, right? It's your team every day, a.k.a. it's your Canucks every day. And speaking of your Canucks have Tyler Myers as their number 4 D-man. And I was driving into work today, and I was trying to make more sense of it, right? Trying to make more sense of the possibility of this working out for at least like the first 20 to 30 games next season, right? Could this be a thing? Could this work? Are we wrong on Tyler Myers? You know, Trevor Beggs, don't shake your head, but you said that, you know, Tyler Myers was probably one of our best defensemen in a few games in the playoffs when the games really mattered. Is that guy going to be a full-time guy next season? Was it a blimp, or was that the real deal? Who knows? But man, oh man, the more I think about it, the more and more I think about Alvin and Rutherford, and Alvin in particularly mentioning Willander and the other Pedersen, DPD, more often in these press conferences. So I'm thinking to myself, there's a chance that either, you know, Tom Willander or DPD gets a chance next season. You know, it's a younger league. Who knows? And let's say Tom Willander improves and, you know, becomes someone who's at the top of his class in the collegiate game next year. It wouldn't be that surprising. And also, it wouldn't be a bad thing. It wouldn't be a desperate thing, okay? There may be a really good hockey player here.
Well, I think there's a really good hockey player in Tom Willander. I mean, I won't beat a dead horse on this one, but was he, you know, the best player available at number 11? Time will tell. I have my doubts, but at the end of the day, the Canucks have a really solid right shot defensive prospect in their pipeline. one of the best right shot defensemen among NHL prospects. And, to be honest, Tom Willander had a bit of an up and down season, but I would argue that there were more ups than downs, right? He looked really good at the World Juniors, scored a game-winning goal against Team Canada, for fans that remember that. He was named to the second All-Star team for Hockey East in the NCAA. You don't do that unless you're having some kind of success. And, offensively, he got better as the season went on. I think he had a stretch towards the end of the season entering the NCAA playoffs there, where he had 9 points in his final 10 games. So, I mean, next season is going to be another big jump for Willander. And, his coach, Jay Pandolfo, had talked about it before, how even when he entered the NCAA, like this is an 18-year-old kid going against college hockey players who a lot of them are 22, 23, 24. Kyle, I barely had any hair on my chest at 18. And, by 24, I was getting it waxed off. So, I mean, there's a big difference between 18 and 24. I mean, my balls dropped at that time for sure. Wait, what?
Yep.
But so Tom Willander, I think there's a chance he plays NHL games next season. And I think it's obviously going to be one of those scenarios where it's towards the end of the year. Let's say the Canucks, let's get in that dreamy scenario where the Canucks are, comfortably in a playoff spot, which is not a given. You never know what's going to happen. I think Canucks, were pretty healthy last year. Not so much next year. You never know what's going to happen. But I think there's a chance that Tom Willander, if he excels in the NCAA this season, in a top pairing role, in a top penalty killing role, in a top power play unit role, roles that he didn't necessarily have for most of last season. If he excels in those roles, I do believe he's going to make his debut for the Canucks at the end of next season.
Me too. And I don't think it'll be a desperate thing. I think it'll be because, again, he excels. And that's what he has to do, right? Like, it's one thing to be named to like the second All-Star team and all that jazz, which is a huge accomplishment, but there has to be that level up and that outstanding type of play in his game in Boston for us to really believe that there's a chance that he goes straight from the Frozen Four or, the March Madness of the NCAA hockey regime to the Vancouver Canucks and not the Abbotsford Canucks, right? That's a big thing. And again, let's say the Canucks, and this would be like borderline impossible, but let's say the Canucks don't quote unquote improve their defense this offseason or going into the regular season and Tyler Myers is still playing a lot of hockey as a top four defenseman. I just feel as if there's a chance to shake things up and give that decor a different look with another right-handed defenseman. And here's one thing about Tom Willander too. Last year he goes from Sweden to the NCAA. Huge adjustment. He also is playing with that Lane Hudson guy, right? Who was probably the best D-man in college hockey last year, or one of them. That's not going to be the case this year. He's going to have to do it all on his own, quote unquote. And a part of me believes that this guy can handle it and adjust and adapt and take on that role because he has the skill set, but he also has the maturity. Okay, for real. For all our listeners, all our viewers of Locked On Canucks, go view Tom Willander interviews. Okay, he's had 2 over the last 2 days at development camp. Okay, go look at his interviews last year. This guy just oozes maturity, oozes understanding. Okay, seems like a Patrick Alvin, Jim Rutherford prototype. For real, seems like that guy. Seems like a guy you could probably plug and play if, again, he excels this season. Now, I think, Trevor, what we need to do this summer, because we have to do this every day, right? Your Canucks every day, no matter what. We got to get a prospect guru on here to tell us, what Willander has to do to stand out next season. And it's easy for us to say, oh, he's got to get better and all that jazz. Like, what in particular does he have to get better at to be that guy?
Yeah, I think that's a good brainstorm here on the show, Kyle. Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day. For me, I think the main thing from watching his tape where I think he needs to improve is, be careful about how I word this, but if you watch tape of Tom Willander, if you watch him play, he tends to be pretty aggressive. If a guy's coming through the neutral zone and they're entering the offensive zone, Willander has a propensity to step up. And, I think there's lots of highlights where he successfully steps up and breaks up the play. But I think he's kind of playing a dangerous game sometimes when he does that. Like I've seen him on plays, where, he pinches up to check a guy, the guy gets the puck by him and he actually recovers and gets the guy behind him. But like more often than not, that's not going to work out. Right. So I think that, I don't want to say he's got to curtail that part of his game because you want him to be aggressive, and he's got the feet to get back in the play. I think that's one of the big traits with Willander. But I do think that he's got to really, and this is only going to come with experience, he's got to really know when to pick his spots and when he gets to the pro game. Because if you do too much pinching up in the neutral zone to break up plays, you're going to get burned. And I think I could see that being the case in Vancouver, where, maybe 90% of the time he's just nothing but a solid defenseman, but he's going to have those oblique moments where you're just like, what was he doing there? But again, he's a young guy with a lot to like about his game. But I think just the timing on when he pinches up to check guys in the neutral zone or at the beginning of the defensive zone is kind of where I want to see him improve the most.
Yeah, and maybe he believes he can take those chances because he's such an excellent skater. Like, I don't have the film on Tom Willander. I really don't. Like, I've only seen highlights. And if you look at this comment from Mother Nucker, probably one of the coolest Canucks fans in the world, real talk, go follow our Discord and just look at the antics from Mother Nucker, okay? Who is this guy? Who the hell is Mother Nucker, okay? Anyways, he's hearing that Willander did not make didn't make a ton of noise for himself, okay? When playing with Lane Hudson at BU last season, didn't make those quote-unquote strides. Speaking of strides, though, go watch the film. This guy's an excellent skater. Cerebral on the ice with his feet. Really good on his edges. Like, when I see the way he skates, again, it's different against NHL players, as Japan on our comments is pointing out. But seeing the way he skates makes me believe that, again, there's just that small chance that this guy gets it. He took in what he learned last year, right? 12 months of BU stuff, all that jazz, North American ice, and his feet are adjusted. He's going to be more instinctual out there. And something gives, okay? The Canucks get a little bit of a miracle. Now, Trevor, I'll slow down a bit on the Willander thing and just end off this segment with this comment, okay? Again, we're having this conversation because right now Tyler Myers is our number 4 D-man. Oh, he's not our number 4 D-man? Oh, okay, let's just put Vincent Desharnais up there. Oh, let's put Forbert up there. Let's put Noah Juleson up there. Right now, Tyler Myers is your 4th best defenseman on this roster, okay? Real talk. We're having this conversation because of that, and we're thinking that, there's like a 50% chance that they walk into the season with this lineup. If it's not Willander, is there any chance that another guy from the AHL, not named Noah Juleson, steps up? And another guy that's always been mentioned when Patrick Allvin opens up his mouth about this D-core is DPD. Is there a chance? Is there a chance? It's a younger league. You never know.
Yeah, with DPD, there's certainly a chance, but when you look at the Canucks depth chart, there's more left shot defensive players in the pipeline, right? Like, even if you look at Abbotsford now.
True.
There's Akito Hirose, Guillaume Brisebois, Christian Wolanin, and DPD as well. Kind of curious if Sawyer Mineo, I guess he's still in junior, but he's kind of knocking on the door of entering Abbotsford soon as well. Kirill Kudryavtsev, I believe, will play at Abbotsford this year. So there's just more competition on the left side. So I think DPD's really got to shine there. On the right side, it's, Cole McWard, Jet Wu, and Christian Felton are your 3 guys. We don't know much about Christian Felton. He just got signed out of college. So less competition there on the right side. So again, Tom Willander, not rushing him, but hey, you look at what the Canucks did in free agency, and I think, Kyle, you and I expected them to chase a second pairing right shot guy. They didn't. They decided Tyler Myers was that guy. By the way, let's finish off this segment. Tyler Myers, I just learned today, has a no move clause for the first 2 years of that contract. What the hell is Tyler Myers getting a no move clause, man? Unbelievable stuff. But
and he got the third year too, right? He got damn, bro. This guy
no move clause first 2 years and 12-team trade list in the third year. Anyways.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Anyways, yeah. Okay, so let's end off the segment really quick. Kurt Richardson saying, Kyle, it's July 3rd. The defense will change by the deadline. Which makes a lot of sense. I know we're jumping ahead of it, but what if it doesn't? Again, the Vancouver Canucks have made the playoffs once in the last 47 years. That's what it feels like, okay? For real. Like, they just got good again. The same management group has already traded over 10 draft picks and a defenseman prospect to the Calgary Flames, right? Like, they've already given up a lot. I'm curious to see how they get better than Tyler Myers from now until, even September, October, without having to give up assets. Because a part of me just feels like this organization should stop doing that until they prove once again that they are winning, right? Because they've only done it once. Anyways, Begsy, let's close this chapter, okay? Oh, Begsy.
Again, with Tom Willander coming back to the Vancouver Canucks next season. I'm booking it right now. Tom Willander plays his first NHL games. On the other side, let's talk about the report, okay? The report that Jake DeBrusk and not Jake Guentzel was the Canucks' #1 target of free agency all along. We'll also talk on another comparison for two guys who had the exact same AAV on the open market. All that coming up on the other side. But before we do that, let's show our friends over at FanDuel. All right. You know what? I love sports. Surprise, surprise. I love them so much, and I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. And I'll say quickly, if I'm looking at bets on FanDuel, Copa America, okay? Friday, Canada, Venezuela. Canada, slight underdogs at +100 against a pretty strong Venezuelan squad so far in Copa. But if you want to sprinkle a few bucks on Canada, they are the underdog, baby. So find that and more on FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
People, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks, a.k.a. talking more about Jake DeBrusk. It's Trevor Beggs. It's Kyle Bowen. Do us a favor and hit that like button, okay? It really does help us out a lot on the program. We're trying to become the 8th best Canucks YouTube program of all time, okay? We're almost there. We had a late start. You know, we were ranked like 87th when we started this in March of 2023, and we're climbing up the ranks. You hit the like button, and me and Trevor can make our dreams come true, okay? We still are on that path to more double dates between Trevor and his lovely wife and me and my hot girlfriend, okay? So let's get there. We can get there with more likes. Beggsy, you got a funny story, okay? And I don't know if it's the Thomas Drance article on him saying that the Canucks had DeBrusk at the top of their list, or is the funny story DeBrusk almost passing away because he blocked the shot with his nuts? Okay, that's not even funny. My bad. I'll take that back. But man, oh man, like, where are you gonna start here?
Yeah, let's start with the more shocking story, because I think the report, we'll get into that in a second. But so I was listening to I'm doing an article for Daily Hive about basically some fun facts about Jake DeBrusk, and I was listening to his episode or his interview on Spitting Chicklets about 5 years ago, because there's always good tidbits in those interviews. And I learned this interview, and I didn't know it before, that Jake DeBrusk at 17 years old, when he was playing with the Swift Current Broncos of the Dub, blocked a slap shot right in the nuts. He was wearing a jock. It didn't matter. He blocked a slap shot right in the nuts. He said he couldn't get up. He had to crawl to the bench. His teammates were laughing and giving him a hard time because I don't think they knew the severity of it. But he actually had to go to hospital, get surgery. He said his nuts swelled up. They had to do surgery to drain all the swelling out. And he was worried at some point that he was going to lose one of his nuts. He did confirm that he hasn't lost any nuts, but he ended off his answer with this amazing quote. How he said, "Well, I said I'd give my left nut to play in the NHL, and I guess I almost did."
Okay.
So man, oh man,
How
what
does
an
that happen to
absolute
happen?
warrior.
What's the psychology there? When anyone ever talks about getting hit in the nuts or having stuff drained out of your nuts because of the swelling after getting hit in the nuts, how come I feel the pain in my nuts?
Oh, it's probably the most painful thing known to being a man.
What hurts
right?
more, giving birth or getting hit in the nuts? Getting hit in the nuts, okay?
Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day, full of proper medical advice here. That's for sure.
Man,
I don't know how proper this report was, but Thomas Drance of The Athletic reporting yesterday that Jake Guentzel, in fact, was not the Canucks' #1 target, despite the countless podcast episodes, despite the countless media personalities talking about it. He said that the Canucks never offered a draft pick to trade for Jake Guentzel because they were worried about the term and the dollars he would command at age 30 years old. And he said that, according to his source, Jake DeBrusk was, in fact, the Canucks' #1 target all along. And my first thought was, yeah, of course, your source within the Canucks organization is going to say Jake DeBrusk was the target all along. No.
Ooh.
on, man. Unbelievable.
Damn.
So,
Not
I
Trevor.
mean, I wasn't shocked by that report. It was at first it kind of opens your eyes, like, oh wow, DeBrusk was the number one target, not Jake Guentzel. That's kind of interesting.
Okay.
But again, it's hard to believe that's the case because of the ties Jake Guentzel had to this Canucks organization, because of this desperate need to add another elite winger to this team. And now, Kyle, maybe I'll frame it this way to you: are the Canucks better off with, Jake DeBrusk, Danton Heinen, Kiefer Sherwood, and those two guys who I called A+ signings yesterday? They probably wouldn't have been able to get those guys if they signed Jake Guentzel. Are the Canucks better off with kind of committee by approach there with DeBrusk, Heinen, and Sherwood, or should they still have gotten Jake Guentzel if that was an option? Which I obviously wasn't, but theoretically speaking.
Good question. Okay, so I'm trying not to be biased. Okay, again, I'm really hippy dippy right now. I'm really Deepak Chopra like with the Vancouver Canucks. I'm really optimistic. I'm really on Patrick Elvine's side, right? And they still have a little bit of cap room left, and maybe they can still get Heinen and Sherwood if they don't spend $2 million on Vincent Darnay and Forbert, right? Oh, but who else is going to play defense for the? I don't know. Call up McWard and Juleson. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? How much better are you with those guys than those other two guys I just mentioned? We'll wait and see, right? So maybe we still get those depth pieces if we don't get the depth pieces on defense, yet we are left with the higher ceiling player in Jake Guentzel. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, like going into this offseason, like 4 days ago, objective number one was not just to sign Jake Guentzel, but it was to make sure Pedersen had that guy. So his life was a lot easier, not only in Tocchet's system, but in the Western Conference. Like, make sure that this guy has elite talent around him. And now we're going into September, and that elite talent is a 45-point scorer. You know, a guy who probably played a lot of time with David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. Bro, they're not. Bro, come on. They're not. That's Jake Guentzel's on another planet. He literally is. He literally is. Now, to tone it down a little and not get so aggressive, and I want to touch more on this later this week or early next week. Maybe during that time, we'll hear Tocchet talk about his thoughts on Jake DeBrusk, right? Because I think that Rick Tocchet has everything to do with getting Jake DeBrusk, right? I want to know if there is another player there. You know how we talked about those inconsistencies in Jake DeBrusk's game? Like, what if he's actually good for 70 games and not just 37 in the regular season? Are we seeing 70 points out of that guy? Because he has the skill set. He has the speed. He's playing with good players. And if that starts to be the case, like if Jake DeBrusk can turn into a 70-point guy in the regular season, then they made the right call. They did. They did. Because I'm not worried about this dude's performance in the playoffs. Because time in and time out, when the games matter, Jake DeBrusk is playing at that playoff speed. He's playing impactful. He's a nuisance. He's annoying to play against. He's more consistent. You know what I'm saying? So this has to do a lot with Tocchet's ability to make DeBrusk into a better player more often than not. Because, come on, Guentzel is on another level. Another level. You can even argue, and we'll have this argument in a couple minutes, that Marchessault is on another level.
Yeah, and I would agree with both points there, Kyle. In terms of DeBrusk, he does kind of fit the Tocchet mold, right? But again, to your point, I do have a hard time believing that Jake Guentzel wasn't the number one target now.
Yeah.
And again, the Canucks, could have traded a third to go get him, theoretically speaking, right? That's what Tampa gave to get his negotiating rights, and they did end up signing him. But yeah, I have a hard time believing that. Oh yeah, Jake DeBrusk was the number one target all along. Like, get out of here, man. I mean, Drag just has to report what he hears, but yeah, when you read stuff like that, you really got to take it with a grain of salt. Speaking of salt, we got to talk about mustard salt on the other side. Don't know what we're talking about? Find out next year on Locked On Canucks. Your Canucks every day.
Okay, we back doing this, and that's talking about Jake DeBrusk and Jake DeBrusk and Jake DeBrusk on this program called Locked On Canucks. Again, hit the like button, subscribe to the show. And show some love to the Don't Doze Art Lab, man. Go visit don'tdoze.com. Look at what we're doing. We're taking care of the West Coast and the West Coast bias. Real talk, we got to look after our neighbors before we look after the world. And now one of our neighbors is Jake DeBrusk. And you know what, Trevor? I always say this. This is the Findu in me. This is the Deepak Chopra in me. Comparison is the thief of joy. The man, oh man, for weeks and weeks and weeks and months and months and months, Jake Guentzel was a Canuck. He was. In our hearts and our minds and all that jazz, okay? An elite winger to play with Pettersson, and now we're left with Jake DeBrusk. And we're going to have to hold on to the potentiality, is that a word, of this dude actually exceeding to a new level. Because I'm not going to front, like this whole thing that like, oh, he could be a 25-goal scorer, and he has to be a 25-goal scorer at the minimum, bro. He's getting paid $5.5 million for 7 years. He's playing with Pettersson. Like, for the Canucks to evolve and take the next step, yeah, I know we didn't sign Guentzel, but what if Pettersson evolves? What if he takes the next step? This whole team looks different. We went through the majority of last year, especially in the second half, not seeing the best version of your favorite team because Pettersson was a tier C player, a tier D player. He really was. That's what it felt like. So, yeah, again, DeBrusk has to work out. Speaking of working out, Marchessault, Jonathan Marchessault, I think that's his name. I have no doubt in my mind that this guy's going to work out for the Nashville Predators. I know he's 34 years old, but there's something about this guy's his competitive nature, his will to win, his FU attitude to the rest of the league, to the Florida Panthers, to the Vegas Golden Knights. There's something there where I feel as if he's going to continue to build off of having to prove people wrong. And last time I checked, this guy won the Conn Smythe Trophy 13 months ago or 12 months ago, and he just had 40 goals. I don't see this guy slowing down. So there's this huge debate going on. Should we have just signed Jonathan Marchessault instead of Jake DeBrusk? I know he's 7 years older, but, JT Miller's 30 years old as an elite number one center. So the need to make sure things work out ASAP for the Vancouver Canucks is pretty important. And we can assume the best in DeBrusk, but man, oh man, losing out on Jonathan Marchessault, I think that's his name, it does sting a little.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring this up too because I did do a YouTube short right after the DeBrusk signing as a bit of a reaction piece, and at the time I was pretty shocked, especially because minutes before we learned that Jonathan Marchessault did get a 5-year contract worth $5.5 million a season, the exact same AAV as Jake DeBrusk. Ironically, Jake DeBrusk's contract ends when he's 34 years old, and Jonathan Marchessault is 34 years old right now. But Kyle, to your point, this guy just scored 40 goals last season. He was the Conn Smythe winner 13 months ago. All he's done throughout his NHL career is prove people wrong. He proved the Panthers wrong. I think he's going to go prove the Vegas Golden Knights wrong in terms of not re-signing him as well. So Jonathan Marchessault is the superior player. I'm standing by that. And interestingly, even when I've kind of dug into their profiles a bit more, like something I found interesting about DeBrusk and Marchessault, and I will get to the comments in a second because I think Kyle's cracking up here, is both Marchessault and DeBrusk are pretty slow skaters. Like when you look at their average speed in terms of the NHL edge data, they're definitely below average in terms of their skating. Jake DeBrusk a bit faster than Jonathan Marchessault. But what both players do extremely well is get a ton of shots on net, from the high danger areas. Marchessault probably a bit less efficient than DeBrusk in that regard because he's a better sniper. DeBrusk more has those cleanup duty by the net goals. But both of them shoot at a high rate. They score at a high rate. At least DeBrusk does when he's healthy. So again, I think Marchessault is the superior player to DeBrusk, but with DeBrusk is more untapped potential. But if you're looking at now, Marchessault definitely the better player.
Yeah, he's a better player, and he has that compete, and he's always had that FU about him, and I always love players like that, that seem mad, seem angry. You get what I'm saying? And one knock on Jake DeBrusk from some Bruins fans is not just about his inconsistencies, but it's his unwillingness to play mad or be intimidating more often than not. Like I feel as if he picks and chooses, right? He's not that physical force. He's not that intimidating player all the time. And I think at his size and at getting paid 5.5 and the Canucks playing in the Western Conference, like this fan base and this team and Rick Tocchet needs him to be that guy again more often than not. Now, it's also one thing to say that the way DeBrusk plays and how big he is, and when he does push the issue, like it takes a toll on his body. So he can't really do it for 82 straight games. Like that's impossible. You want this guy saving it for the playoffs. And again, look at the stats, look at the film. He does that. He plays big boy hockey in the playoffs. So I'm curious to see if like how patient this fan base will be with Jake DeBrusk, knowing that there are inconsistencies. But again, you just got to wait till April to get the best out of this guy. It's kind of similar with the whole Nikita Zadorov thing too. Let's get to the comments before we get out of here. We're already at the 30-minute mark. So many things to talk about. Okay, we still got a couple more days in the week. We're gonna talk more about Jake DeBrusk because he's now the most important player on this team. It feels like that. Like,
Woo-hoo!
like his success and his ability to evolve and be more than a 40 to 50 point guy is so instrumental in the future of the Vancouver Canucks. It is. It is. Because you committed a lot of years to this guy and a lot of term. A lot of term. And if you look at next year's free agent list and where the Canucks are in their trajectory to win the cup, like we still got to be patient here, right? There's still a lot of trials and tribulations. Like you got to ask yourself, like, if this doesn't work out, you're going to regret it. Because next year there's a boatload of free agents available. You get what I'm saying? So DeBrusk has to work out. Trevor, let's get to the comments, okay? Because I'm going to go on a spiel, okay? Get to the comments. Shut me up.
All right. Let's bring up some comments here. Let's go to Kurt Richardson. Dillon at $4 million. Yeah, there was a lot of overpayments in free agency, and Brandon Dillon was one of those guys who was rumored to come to the Vancouver Canucks. Well, he even said on Donnie and Dolly he would be open to coming back to the Vancouver Canucks, but that was a contract where I saw 3 years at $4 million for what Dillon provides in his age. Yeah, I'm actually kind of happy they went the Forbort avenue, even if Forbort is definitely a lesser player, but at that contract, I think there's better value there than a guy like Derek Forbort. And we had some listeners here who some debate between whether the Canucks should have gotten DeBrusk or Marchessault here. So Japan Force saying Marchessault equals cup winner, 70 points last year, team leader. And he also goes on to talk about how, why didn't the Canucks just give Marchessault $6 million rather than DeBrusk at 5.5? And, I kind of said going into free agency every day is no. I had a hard time seeing Marchessault in Vancouver. I don't know if it's just because he's lit it up against us with the Golden Knights or whatever it was, but it's clear that this Canuck team prioritizes size, right? Like we saw the whole swap with the odd swap with the Boston Bruins in free agency, but this team likes their big bodies, right? It's like we're trying to be Boston West out here or something like that. But
no,
it's true. Out for your Vancouver Canucks.
And again, like we're allowed to be emotional, we're allowed to be irrational, we're allowed to have our thoughts before we, wait and see what this actually looks like. But Beggs, you bring up a good point, and I keep saying that this fan base, this side of the world, they haven't seen a management group, a coaching staff, a leadership group like this ever. There's too much championship pedigree here. Like we have to be patient. And one thing that they are doing is telling the fan base that they want to build a team. They have a plan, and they want to build not only a culture, but a style of Vancouver Canuck hockey, okay? Until we win a cup, there's no recipe to success. There's no aura about what it means to be a Vancouver Canuck. And I think the Vancouver Canucks, if they do win a cup and when they do win a cup, it's gonna be like Broad Street Bully like, or the Big Bad Bruins like, or the Vegas Golden Knights like it's gonna be big boy hockey. And Rick Tocchet, he wants that. And you know what? I want to touch on this maybe even later today. Maybe I'll hop on again. But Vincent Desharnais just told Canucks media and the Canucks fans that Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote called him a couple hours before he signed that deal with the Vancouver Canucks. And they convinced him to sign here. They identify what they want in a prototype and a player type, and they have the faith that they're going to be able to make players better, have players reach their potential. And it's one thing to bring up Vincent Desharnais' name with this, but let's tie it back with, again, the most important Canuck going into next season, Jake DeBrusk. What can Rick Tocchet do with a guy like that? I believe it. I know it's hard. I know we're all armchair GMs and we're all passionate, and Jonathan Marchessault is a team leader, and I would love to have, again, that attitude, that charismatic nature, that win-first attitude with Marchessault or even Jake DeBrusk, Jake Guentzel in the lineup. But have patience, have some faith, and remember, Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar, the guys in that dressing room, they're champions, man. they know what they're doing too.
Straight up. And this coaching staff, we trust, even if we don't fully trust the decisions from the opening day of free agency. Again, if you didn't hear the last 2 episodes, we did give grades on free agency. Go check those out if you haven't already. And it was a passing grade for the Vancouver Canucks. We'll call it that, but we'll leave the rest for those who haven't tuned in. But we do got to get out of here. Okay. So shout out to the everydayers, the occasional listeners, the first time listeners, the new subscribers, and those of you who join us on the live show on YouTube, wherever you're listening, whenever you're listening, we appreciate you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. Coming up later this weekend. Hey, we are full-time 5 days a week for the rest of July. Okay. Let's go.
We're 5 days a week for all of July.
Oh yeah.
We're
I'm
blessed.
breaking the news to you now. Yeah.
We're blessed.
5 days a week for the rest of July. Part-time from August to mid-September, but you're going to have us Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day for the rest of July at least. More deep dives on DeBrusk, a little bit on Vincent Desharnais, and some roster projections coming up for on this episode as well. But for now, we got to get out of here. I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy's Kyle Bowen, and you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
Peace out, peace out, peace out.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every